to stop the hackers. We are good to go. Let me see if I can get some of our panel or chairman or president, your chair is here. Let me move you. Oops. Okay, Director Gibson, you should be able to speak. Unmute yourself.
You okay? Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay, and then we are good to go.
Okay, let's open the District Operation Committee for September 18th. I need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
and Chair Russell.
Aye. Any public comment?
Not at this time. We do not have any.
Okay. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the Operations Committee from August 21, 2020.
Moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Gibson,
Aye.
Chair Russell.
Aye. Okay. Item 2. Michael Bond, preparation of local hazard mitigation plan.
So Director Russell, Kristen Arnold is going to lead this discussion today. Hi, Kristen.
Perfect.
Good morning.
Morning.
So yeah, today I'm going to talk about the local hazard mitigation plan. To start, I'll give a brief introduction to what a local hazard mitigation plan is. In short, it's a document that identifies natural hazards and vulnerabilities to those hazards and also outlines strategies to reduce those vulnerabilities. As we all know, natural disasters such as wildfires, earthquakes, and flooding can cause loss of life, damage buildings and infrastructure, and have devastating economic and environmental consequences. Hazard mitigation planning is the process through which hazards that threaten communities are identified and likely impacts to those hazards are determined, mitigation goals are set, and appropriate strategies to lessen the impacts are determined, prioritized, and implemented. In April of 2020, the district secured a $150,000 grant to fund a local hazard mitigation plan. This important project is funded largely by FEMA and is foundational in that once completed, it will identify actions for risk reduction, increase the district's awareness of hazards and vulnerabilities, and make the district eligible for a range of hazard mitigation funding programs. The Federal Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000 requires special districts to have a FEMA-approved plan before being eligible to apply and receive federal disaster grant assistance. A FEMA-approved plan ensures the district's continued eligibility for project grants under FEMA's hazard mitigation assistance programs, which include the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities Program, and the Post-Fire Grant Program. These grant programs provide funds for mitigation projects along with disaster recovery funds for after a disaster occurs. So what will our local hazard mitigation plan look like? The plan will consist of 4 major tasks, including conducting a risk assessment, evaluating the district's infrastructure vulnerabilities, developing mitigation actions, and determining implementation priorities. The first task is the risk assessment and will include identifying and profiling all credible natural hazards that could impact the district. hazards expected to be included are earthquakes, floods, fires, and landslides. The second task will evaluate the district's infrastructure vulnerabilities and compile an inventory of facilities that are vulnerable to each of the hazards. The third task will identify and analyze a comprehensive range of possible mitigation actions with a goal of reducing and avoiding our long-term vulnerabilities. Lastly, task 4 will be developing implementation actions and prioritizing these actions based on the potential impact to the district. So once staff received grant approval from FEMA, they began to plan out the local hazard mitigation plan project. And at the end of August, staff publicly advertised a request for proposals to develop a FEMA-approved local hazard mitigation plan. The proposals are due September 23rd, and staff will recommend a qualified consultant and seek approval at a future regular bi-monthly board meeting. Staff anticipates that the project will be completed by the end of 2021. So if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah, I have several. What kind of consultants do this? Which consultants?
It's kind of a large mix. Some of them are strictly kind of emergency preparedness planners, and others are kind of larger engineering firms, for example, like GHD and Stantec. They do hazard mitigation planning.
Have you asked them for copies of other reports they've done or anything like that in the RFP?
Yes, we did. We include that in our.
Good. And did you put a budget in the RFP?
We talked about the grant, but I think we left it at the grant.
Do you think 150,000 is going to be enough?
Our budget is about, or our estimate is 200,000. FEMA will cover 75% of the project, so the district is responsible to cover 25% of the cost.
So
Thank you.
Larry,
And one more. Oh, good.
Oh,
Go
I
ahead,
was
Ben.
going to share that this isn't going to be comprehensive in looking at every element in granularity. You know, it'll dovetail with our seismic plan that we have, with our fire plan that we have, and all of those projects will be now eligible for the FEMA grant funding program.
Yeah, I understand what the purpose is. It's a key to the lock,
Right.
To the safe. Does climate change come under that categorization? Or could it?
Yes, a lot of plans that I've looked at have mentioned climate change or have looked into climate change. But the climate change also kind of gets wrapped into the other natural disasters because it will cause worse floodings and droughts, fires.
Sure. Thank you. That answered my questions.
So I was just going to say, and I think Ben kind of touched on it, I think if a lot of the pieces of this have already been done with some other studies that we've done. So are you sort of inventorying our existing data to be able to kind of plug it in?
Yes, we will definitely include existing data into this study.
Because, yeah, I know we've got Division of Dam Safety, we've got the BIFIP. I'm sure there's a few more that I'm just not familiar with, so that, you know, we don't have to reinvent the wheel on a lot of your chapters or sections that you need to do to comply with FEMA regs. So, and then the other thing I was going to mention, you know, I don't know if you've ever worked with FEMA before, but my experience has been we're quite difficult. This hopefully will be more of an academic exercise, but so have you ever worked with FEMA before? Or is this going to be your maiden voyage with FEMA?
This will be my first FEMA project.
Okay, well, strap your seatbelt on. But hopefully it'll be okay. So thanks a lot.
Just, Larry, we are requiring that the document prepared by our consultant is accepted by FEMA. So
Okay,
we recognize that sometimes they can be difficult to work with. So we're looking for somebody who has experience with FEMA and will produce a document acceptable to them.
good.
So we agree.
Good. It should be a good exercise for us for sure too. So looking forward to see that work product.
Do we have any idea how many of these are ongoing at the same time in the Bay Area?
I'm not aware of others that are happening right now. Many other agencies have already prepared this, and some you have to update them roughly every 5 years. So a lot of agencies are in the update phase.
Yeah, I think Kristen mentioned 2000 is when the legislation occurred requiring these. So many agencies have them in place.
Were we just waiting for the grant, or did we just not get on the stick, or we didn't see a need? Or do you know?
Mostly we were pursuing the grant, and they've actually expanded or increased the amount of the grant. So 150,000 is a good number for us. So yeah, we started the grant application process a year ago.
I was just going to add one other thing real quickly. There may be some reports and data from county agencies like the flood districts, that sort of surround the watershed. And I know Sean Horn mentioned yesterday, there's some mapping that the county's doing on historic fire patterns that, might be worth taking a look at. And hopefully we're going to be getting an update of that from Sean when the county provides it. But just to keep in mind, there may be some good reports and stuff that we can plug in from the county. So.
Thank you for that, Larry.
Sure.
Okay, Jack, any comments?
No, none. Thank you. It sounds like a very worthwhile project here.
Definitely.
And Chair
I guess
Russell,
on the end of it there, Terry, it says, or Mike, it says fiscal impact none, but there is an impact, huh?
There will be. Today's action, there's no impact, but when we bring a recommendation for consultant selection, yes, we'll lay out the cost.
Cool. I'm sorry, Terry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that we don't have any comments either from the public.
Great. So it's information. Thank you. Let's move on to number 3. Okay, watershed culvert replacements. Crystal?
Hi, good morning, directors. We're going to let Sean Horn give this presentation.
Good morning, board members. Sean Horn, Watershed Resource Manager. We have a presentation to give you as part of this update, so let me switch over to our share my screen with you real quick. All right, so this is an update on the watershed culvert replacement work that we've been conducting over the last 2 years, but started much earlier than that, as far back as the early 2000s when we started looking at all of our infrastructure. So we'll provide you with a brief update overview of our culvert infrastructure as a whole, and then look at our roads and trails management plan very briefly, just because it gives us the basis to do this work, and then talk about our watershed culvert assessment that we conducted in the 2000s, as well as an updated version in 2018 that's informing the work that we're doing today. And then we'll look at a couple of the culvert replacement sites that we completed last year, as well as what we have planned for this summer, and then some of the annual maintenance that we conduct and how we coordinate that. So if we zoom way out, look at the district's operational area, and then also zoom into our Mount Tam watershed, we see that the district is responsible for an extremely large amount of infrastructure generally, but what we're looking at is those green dots, which is our culvert infrastructure, some of which supports our water infrastructure, some of it supports our roads and trails network on the watershed. So our roads and trails management plan was developed really to provide a tool for the district to maintain our roads and trails system. Had three overarching goals. That was to improve water quality and minimize sediment into the creeks and reservoir, and to reduce the impacts of our roads and trails network on our sensitive biological and physical resources such as wetlands, riparian areas, and other sensitive plants and animals. And it was also developed to improve the overall natural ecological function of our watershed lands. And so the roads and trails management plan is a key document for the district to be able to do this kind of work. It also gives us the environmental clearance through CEQA and the basis of our permits that we go after. So for all of these projects that we're conducting, many of them are within the jurisdiction of California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and in some cases, the Army Corps of Engineers. So back in 2003, the district did a watershed-wide assessment of its road and culvert network, roads and trails network, looking at ways that we could improve sediment and storm-proof our system generally. And we worked with Pacific Watershed Associates to conduct that assessment. And it really gave us the data to inform how we move forward with management of our roads and trails network to improve drainage generally. And we've done a lot of good projects over the years to address our road infrastructure through installing rolling dips, water bars, and things of that sort. But culverts is an ongoing need. Culverts have a useful life of about 50 years. We have over 700 culverts that are within our jurisdiction that we need to manage, and are critical to be managed periodically to ensure that our roads network is safe and sustainable and accessible. So if we just kind of look at the Mount Tam watershed specifically, we have this beautiful watershed with these streams that run across it. If this is what we were managing, we'd have a very different conversation. But we have this network of roads that crosses many of these streams, creating a management issue and ongoing need to not only review our infrastructure, but replace our infrastructure. So on the watershed alone, here's kind of what it looks like if you just zoom into our culvert sites. So these are all the culverts that we have a database on and conduct annual maintenance, and also need to periodically replace. So we've gone through an assessment in 2018, looking at all of those culverts and the data that was developed through our PWA assessment, and came up with a prioritization in 2 phases of replacement. The red dots are our first phase of replacement, and we started a permitting process back in 2018. And we secured permits from CDFW, Regional Water Quality Control Board, and Army Corps of Engineers to replace 35 culverts on the watershed that were our highest priority for replacement due to partial or full failure. So we're moving forward with that work. And then we've also identified another 60 culverts that we're currently working on getting permits for, which we hope to have the permits in place by 2022 to continue that work. So for this year, we have about 15 culvert sites that we'll be replacing. Last year, we replaced 6 culverts. So I'll just show you what some of those sites look like and why there was a need to go in and replace these culverts. So we have this historic infrastructure. A lot of it was put in without going through a process of actually appropriately sizing the drainage infrastructure. So one of the big issues that we have is that some of our culverts aren't passing some of our storm debris in the flows that we see in these larger events on the watershed, and that can become a problem. It'll either plug the culvert or actually overtop our road and cause some erosion issues and sedimentation into our reservoirs, which is what we want to address. So this is just an example of some of the sites on Alpine Bone Tempe Road and Fish Grade. Both these sites will be replaced this summer, this October. So moving forward, we have a number of sites on Bill Williams Road that we have prioritized for replacement in this current permit package. You know, some of these are actually old water lines that were placed in the road. They weren't put beneath the surface or the grade of the road. And in some cases, such as the one on the left, the orientation of the culverts is not appropriate. And this is actually the outlet, which is higher than the inlet. So there's, improvements that we need to do to enhance the drainage and the function of these facilities. And that'll really improve our road network and make it a more sustainable and usable system for not only our maintenance vehicles, but our recreational users. So just another example of Bill Williams and Alpine Bontempe. Some of these culverts have kind of reached the useful life, and some of them over the years have caused other issues, such as the one on Alpine Bontempe Road, where we see some erosion at the outlet. So as part of this project, we are going to address those types of issues. So if we have an outlet that's eroding, we'll have some stabilization features that go in at the outfall. And then in the case of Bill Williams, we're going to be sizing all of our culverts to be able to pass the 100-year storm event, or Q100. So just an example of some of the work that we did this last year along Sky Oaks Road. We had a number of failed culverts, some of them that were causing issues to our road infrastructure. And we actually had this one here was one that we pulled out, upsized, and actually installed in a way that will not only enhance the drainage and storm flow, but also some of the resources on the upstream side. So this is another example of Sky Oaks Road, a culvert that was placed under the road that was actually an old water line. It was never appropriately sized. And this is an example of just the difference in sizing that occurs and the failure that happened on the left in 2019 due to the undersized culvert during a large storm event when the road kind of collapsed in front of it and backed it up and then caused some additional erosion. So we want to put in infrastructure that will be more resilient generally to those storm events. So another one that we're continuing to work on is our Deer Park culvert. This is one that failed in 2019. Luckily, we were in this culvert planning process and had secured permits to allow us to go in and do work. However, we didn't have the culvert ordered and on site yet. So what we did was we put in a temporary culvert at the site last year to ensure that it was passable for emergency response vehicles and recreational users. And we're going to be going back in this summer and putting in an arched steel culvert at this site. So we will close Deer Park for 1 or 2 days temporarily in order to do that work in late October. And so those are our larger replacement efforts, but in addition to replacing our culverts, we also conduct annual maintenance. So one of the things that we've actually developed is an SAP maintenance plan. So every October we get kind of notified that we need to do these culvert inspections, and we send crews out to actually assess all the culverts on the watershed and then identify any pre-winter clearing or maintenance that can be conducted to ensure that those features will function appropriately during the winter. And additionally, we want to get out and address issues during storm events should they occur. So we do a storm assessment during large storm events to make sure that all of our infrastructure is functioning appropriately. And one of the benefits of getting out there and replacing and upsizing a lot of this undersized infrastructure is it'll get us in front of having to do as many of these storm assessments, because we'll have more confidence that the infrastructure can actually pass these flows. So in addition to our SAP maintenance plans, one of the things that we're currently working with our IT department on is actually integrating SAP with GIS, so we can actually have field maps that are geo-referenced and allow us to go out and actually update our SAP system through a mapping interface, which is going to be a big push and help for our field crews to actually be able to more efficiently track all of the maintenance work that we're doing on an annual basis. So with that, that's an overview of kind of where we are with our culvert maintenance work this summer. We have a number of projects planned that'll be happening, as I mentioned, in October on Deer Park Road. We'll be working on Fish Grade Road. We'll be working on Warren Springs, and then also Alpine Bontempe Dam Road. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have about the work we've been doing in relationship to culverts on the watershed.
Yeah, I have a question, Larry, if I can. Historically, have we approached the issue of culverts, say, on a reactive basis? In other words, we got a problem there, we got to go fix it. Have we ever set in a place a more or less like our pipe replacement, where we have a planned out, we know which pipes are, barring an emergency, going to be replaced next year and so forth. Do we have anything equivalent to that on the issue of, say, culverts?
Sean, if I could add. So historically, when I got here, the way that maintenance used to be handled in the past was, you'd have folks that had all the knowledge in their head, and they knew where to look for problem areas and which culverts to check every year, but none of it was documented. So it wasn't until I got here at the district that we started to actually get detailed maintenance plans and inspection protocols in place so that folks would get out of their truck, put eyes on the culvert, look to make sure it's not clogged, and then keep a documentation that every culvert was checked. Because as you know, as people retire and leave, that knowledge walks out the door with them. So that's one of the benefits of the new asset management program, is now everything is much more streamlined and efficient, and we can be sure that we're gonna, maintain everything that's out there and not lose track of items.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'll just add to that briefly that there are great examples that the district has done large pipeline replacement efforts and combined that with the culvert replacement simultaneously. So an example of that would be Concrete Pipe Road. When engineering department did a replacement effort, they also replaced the culverts as part of that project.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
So I was just going to say, I think this is actually an incredibly important project because, this is part of the green infrastructure, which is really, our primary asset, the foundation of the whole agency. So it's really important. And, some of these are going to actually maybe increase the drainage into our reservoirs, which would also obviously be desirable. So the only downside I see is, like, for example, Deer Park, if first of all, I'm amazed you're redoing it because I thought your temporary looked pretty good to me. I was going to say, I thought you did a great job, but I'm looking forward to seeing the new permanent one. But it's going to increase flow into local creeks and such is what I was going to say. Maybe, which is going to have a downstream impact, speaking of flood districts and all that. But anyway, it's very important, and it's good to see it's getting off the ground. So that's about it for me.
I'll just call out an oversight on myself when I was presenting this. One thing I wanted to mention to you all was, the Deer Park is an example where we had a large plastic corrugated culvert that we could use for our temporary repair. One of the things that we're doing as part of this project and thinking about wildfire is to replace all of our culverts with corrugated steel. One of the things that they've seen in North Bay fires is that a lot of times those plastic culverts will melt and fail and cause water quality impacts, and then also impact your road infrastructure. That can be an exceptional repair need immediately after a disaster.
Yeah, good point. So that's good.
Of course, the flip of that is that the corrugated steel ones corrode, huh?
That's
so
true.
they have a life, whereas
They
the
do.
plastic one probably doesn't have a life other than getting burned up.
Well, it can get brittle. Right. It can get
Yeah, well, the sun's not on them, so I don't think they're going to change too much in sitting there. It's the sun that causes it to get brittle. It removes the UV, basically what I call the sunscreen from the plastic, and then it gets brittle. But maybe there's a way, or have you asked, Sean, about if anybody's got lined corrugated metal, or maybe we should look at cathodically protecting them and try to extend their life? Because I've been involved in some pretty big failures of corrugated metal drains. So, it's kind of 6 to 1, half a dozen of another.
Could I ask a technical question, which is, did you guys do a mitigated negative deck on this whole thing? Or do you just do your various permits, or how do you actually do your due diligence?
Yeah, great question. This is really the power of our roads and trails management plan. There's a programmatic EIR associated with that document that gives us the basis for our permit applications.
Okay.
And then the permit applications dictate, monitoring and work that we need to do associated, specifically with that.
Okay.
side.
So
Yeah.
this comes under that programmatic EIR from Road and Trails.
That's correct. And then I think a good point that Crystal was bringing up there is that, we're getting the permits to do these projects. We have those permits in place for about 5 years to implement under. However, there is a long-term monitoring requirement associated with all of those permits. So the work doesn't necessarily stop after the implementation phase. We are required to ensure that those features that we're putting into the watershed and landscape are functioning as designed. So that's something that we'll be submitting an annual report to all of those agencies for a 5-year period to ensure that they're achieving the desired function.
So you're actually going to be monitoring performance. Yeah,
exactly.
That's good. Okay.
Okay, job well done. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you,
Crystal.
And I just want to
Okay.
say, there aren't
Go
any speakers.
Thank you. Item 4 is the Southern Marin Pipeline Replacement Project.
So Director Russell, I'm just going to make a few opening remarks on this project, and then I will turn it over to Jake Miller, who will give the presentation. The Southern Marin Pipeline Replacement Project features replacement of 2 pipelines in particular that have been very problematic for us here at the district. And these are the 1,100 feet of pipe on Round Hill Road in Tiburon and 1,100 feet of pipe on Harrison Avenue in Sausalito. Both of those 8-inch cast iron pipes, which are about 60 years old, have experienced 5 water main breaks in the last 9 years and have resulted in some substantial property damage claims against the district and also extensive repairs by our watershed, our F&W crews. So we're particularly pleased to be getting these problematic pipes out of our system. And so with that, I will turn it over to Jake, who'll give you a presentation on this.
Let me ask you a question, Mike, before you do that.
Sure.
Have we talked to all the cities? They all know we're coming and everything's cool?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, good morning. The Southern Marin Pipeline Replacement Project will take place in Tiburon, Belvedere, Sausalito, and it will be replacing old leak-prone, seismic deficient pipe and be replacing it with 5,080 feet of new pipe. This project is in coordination with the City of Belvedere's Earthquake Resiliency Program, the ongoing Sanitary District Number 5's force main replacement project, and other planned upcoming paving work. My engineer's estimate for this project is $1,960,000, and bids will be opened on October 6th. The project schedule is to last 275 days with a completion date of July 22nd, 2021. If all bid documents are acceptable, staff will make a recommendation at the October 20th board meeting for contract award. Recommendation action is for review and referral to the board with the operation committee's recommendation to proceed with the project. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, Jake, it's a little unusual to get different cities in one project, huh? I mean, obviously you considered doing this as 3 projects, or I would assume you did anyway. Is there a reason that you packaged them together?
These are all, as Mike made you aware, in coordination with different areas where the pipe have leaked, and we're trying to get them all out as soon as possible. So we
right, but I mean, are you anticipating the contractor's going to open up the ground in all 3 places at the same time?
Not at all. So in coordination with the different cities and the current sanitation districts project, we're going to start in Belvedere and then work our way through Belvedere, Tiburon, and then end up in Sausalito.
So to the point of getting them done faster, wouldn't it be easier if we had 3 separate projects from the standpoint of getting them all done at the same time?
Yes. I could see how you can see that.
I don't care. I'm just asking a question. You know, I'm not challenging her or anything. It just looks to me like you made a big project out of 3 smaller projects. And it seems to me, you didn't mention it, Mike, but isn't Cove Road the one where we had the BMW that got destroyed? It was around there anyway. Might have been San Rafael or something, but remember the BMW that got totaled?
I don't remember that.
There was
Director Russell.
a BMW parked in somebody's driveway and it got pounded by rocks from the leak. So I think that was on Cove Road. So that's the same problem. And are we taking some special precautions? I mean, I assume the ones like Cove Road are probably under salt water.
We are. So we're requiring them to use shoring and other practices to prevent or to work with the high water table out there.
I was thinking more about the longevity of the pipe in terms of cathodic protection and things like that.
Yes, so we're actually going with HDPE pipe in that section.
Just for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good idea. I think that's all I got.
Jake, is Main Street Tiburon? Is that the old main drag in Tiburon, or which Main Street is that?
So we're actually replacing the pipe on Main Street between Beach Road and Bellevue Road. That's where the major work will be done. And then we'll just be transferring services from an old main to a newer main that's in the same road from Bellevue to a little further east of Eastview Avenue.
But is it in Tiburon? Is it Main Street in Tiburon?
Yes,
Yeah.
So is that the one that runs right in front of Sam's?
it does, but we won't be working in front of the businesses there.
Okay,
We'll be
that
working
was
just
west. Okay,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was driving at. Okay.
Although we're getting pretty close, huh?
We are.
Yeah. I mean, you're coming down the hill there along
Yeah.
Arc Road.
Well, you'll
Yeah.
work with the chamber or the town, and you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe. I'm anticipating my phone lighting up on that one.
Because you're
But
popular. Never mind. It was...
Mike, to answer Director Russell's earlier question, by grouping these projects, is part of that the efficiency of putting together the bid package and all the overhead costs that go into awarding multiple projects?
Yes, Ben, and I think there's not only the efficiency, but also the larger contract attracts more contractors. So I think we'll get more competitive bids that way.
Makes sense.
Right.
What's the, I know you said 2021, but what's the schedule on these in terms of how many days are you going to be blocking Cove Road in that area, or do we know yet?
I'm anticipating work in Belvedere to take approximately 100 days. So
Oh boy, that's a long time. Okay.
That's mostly Cove Road and Beach. And in Tiburon, it'll be approximately 60 days. So that's Round Hill and Main Street.
And Jake, the Cove Road stuff, the sanitary district is putting a pipe in the same street?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, they're working on that right now.
And so it's torn up now.
Yes.
Okay. And so it's going to stay torn up for a while, huh?
Yes. So we've worked with the city of Belvedere to coordinate paving restoration with the sanitary district.
Okay. And so far they're cool?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me know if I can be of any help.
I appreciate that.
That's all I got. Jack?
Nope, I got nothing.
Anything else, Larry?
Not for me.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Okay. Have a good
You too. Take care. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very
Bye.
much. Take care.